Hello, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and today I'm going to walk you through step by step how to create these engraved acrylic dog memorial ornaments with your scan and cut. Okay, so I am in Brother Canvas, and to open up the ornament SVG, you go over here to SVG, click on that. It's going to bring up, you know, your screen, your computer documents, and you have to navigate within your computer to find the file. I just know mine is click on it and open it. It's going to come, so it's going to come into your screen like this. Couple things to be aware of with this file. The bone template is sized specifically to the ornament blank that I used. So I used a ornament from Michaels, and it was from ArtMinds. So I measured it to make sure that this bone template fit exactly onto that ornament. If your ornament is a different size, what you can do is click on that, come over here, go to the edit menu, and you can change the size here. The only thing you need to be concerned about with that would be that sometimes this middle section, which is really the important part for getting your dog's name and the years on the blank, is the correct width, because this one from Michaels is kind of thick, like fat, you know, there's a fair amount of space that you can engrave something on in the center. So just be careful about that. If you need to change that, I'm not sure, you would probably have to create your own template. And how I did that was I used a rectangle and then a circle, and I duplicated the circle 4 times, and then welded the circles together and then welded them to the rectangle to make sure that it was they were all the right size. So like the rectangle, I made sure the height was correct on the rectangle. I made sure the diameter was correct on the circle. Then I made 4, welded them, and then made sure that the width was correct on the overall bone, basically. Okay, so enough about that. Okay, so the important part, I'm going to go over to the layers menu over here. The thing we got to do is remove Otis and 2000 to 2012, because we're going to rename this for your dog. So you can click on this and just drag it off, or you can go over here and click on whatever it is you want to remove. So like here's the shape, or the years. So it selected it, and then I'm just going to drag, oh, stupid, then it does that. Oh, that's so annoying. Don't do that. Okay, shape. This is where it gets a little tricky because you got to make sure you're like grabbing one of the letters. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is do my other dog that has passed. So I'm going to go over here to the text tool, click on that, and then just click anywhere on the mat. And her name was Molly. And I don't like this font. So I'm going to go over here to the properties menu, which is this little sort of paintbrush looking thing, and you can change the font over here if my computer decides to cooperate. It's thinking about it. Okay, all right, so the font I want, no, you can't, is Empathy. So I'm gonna go scroll down. It doesn't look like you can just type something in and have it go to that, unfortunately, so you just scroll. And so there it is. And so it's changed. Now, one thing I want you to be able to see is that, so I'm going to scroll in here, is that each of these letters, well, the 2 L's are together for some reason, but the O is a separate letter, the L's are separate, and then the Y is separate. Like you can see the cut lines right here. And we need to change that. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize it down to, so it will fit up here in the bone. So I'm going to just grab this handle in the corner, and if you do the corner ones, like any of the corner ones, you see how it makes this sort of split arrow. that will keep the design proportionate as you scale it down, as you like squish it down like this. Here, let me, and then also I'll undo that. Whereas if you do one of the other, like one of these, you know how, see how the spacing is off? You know, and same with this, like if it's gonna just squish it, it doesn't keep the word in the same proportion. So I'm gonna do the handles in the corner, squish it down, and drag it up here. And it's a little small, so we'll make this a little bigger. And I'm just gonna monkey around with it to get it kind of where I want it. Okay, and I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit more. So I'm gonna click on this guy. So what I'm gonna do now is go over here to the edit menu, which is the square on the right. And I'm gonna go down here to shapes, and I'm gonna click this first shape, and you can see the little rollover menu says Weld. So you make sure your item is selected, and then come over here and click Weld. And so then you can see how those little cut lines on the Y and the O disappeared, and they all connected together to make one word. So that's pretty important. You don't want to have like weird cut lines, even on an engraving, that might show up and could be strange. Now I am going to actually fill this. Right now it has no fill, because the engraving tool that you can use on the ScanNCut will do a fill. It's a little bit rustic looking. It basically does it by drawing like small horizontal lines, like one after the other, to fill in anything that's too thick, or that's thicker than like the lines that it will engrave on the outside. So that can look kind of cool. It's more rustic the smaller the item is, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to do it. If you don't want that, you will have to leave the fill off. Now it is going to fill these wings. There's really no way around that, because if you take the fill off, it's going to just disappear. So you probably don't want to do that. But if you don't want the name and the years filled in that kind of rustic manner, then just don't do it. Okay, now I'm going to also put the years in. So I've got my text tool over here again, and I'm going to do this a slightly different way. I'm going to go up here to the font menu, and I'm going to pick my font first before I type the word in. So you can do this either way, totally up to you. And the font I am looking for is Prestige Elite Standard. All right, and then I can just click on the mat and put in her years. Oops. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now you don't have to worry about welding this, because they should all be individual words. So really what we got to do now is squish it down. Now I am going to fill this also, because I kind of like the fill, the rusticy effect. And it does make the engraving show up a little bit more. And now I'm just going to squish it down by using that same handle trick. And I'm going to go up here to the Otis years and sort of size it to be close to him. Now obviously these fonts are on my computer. Prestige might be sort of a standard font. I know Empathy is not. That is I had to purchase that to have a commercial license for it, so just keep that in mind. But you can use whatever font you like that goes with your dog's name, and it will look good when you space it between the wings. For example, on Otis, I used a font called Mr. Bootsy, and it's super cute, but when you type Molly in it, it looks really weird. Like, it doesn't look good. So that's why I changed it to a scripty font. Looks better. So just kind of keep that stuff in mind. All right. So now what we need to do is select everything. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to do one thing first. I'm going to select the three things in the middle. And I'm going to go over here to align, and I'm just going to make sure that they are centered on each other. And you saw Molly move there a little bit. And I'm going to make sure that they are distributed vertically. And there we go. So Molly kind of shifted a little bit. So that works very nicely. And now I am going to select everything, hold down Shift, and select all of the elements on the bone, like so. And I'm going to go over here to the Edit menu and do Edit, Flip Horizontal. We want to do that because we're going to be engraving on the back side of the ornament and looking through it to read it from the front, so it needs to be backwards. So when you look at it from the front, you can read it. Now we don't need Otis and these numbers anymore, so I'm just going to go select them by clicking and dragging over them, and then you can go Edit, Cut, or you can just hit Delete on your keyboard, and that'll get rid of them. Okay, so some other things that we have to think about over here. Now, right now, all of the elements are showing up as a cut line, and we don't want them to be cut lines. We need them to be draw lines. This is really important. So I'm just clicking on it and then changing it to draw. So you can see how it goes from this little knife blade to a little pen nib. It's important with Brother that you do this before you transfer the file, the cut file, to the machine, because for whatever reason, if it has not been set up in Brother Canvas as a drawing file, the machine won't let you draw it. It's a little strange because it gives you the choice, but then you can't actually pick it. So you do have to make sure that it's a drawing file before you send it over. Okay, so now that we've done all that, I'm going to save this. I'm going to just save it because it's already saved. Or actually, no, it's not. So we could go Save As, and then you navigate to where you're going to save it, and then you just save it. So I'll just call this Dog Ornament X. Because I've already got like 20 of these I've saved. And I've got it in the folder that I wanted in up here. So I just save it. All right, so we've got a couple more steps. Now this, we're going to select the whole thing just by clicking and dragging. Just make sure everything's got a box around it. And I'm going to drag this down because the lines here are the lines that you will have on your mat. And so we want to set this bone up so that along the line, so the left side is going right along this the 1 inch mark on the left hand side, and the top line of the bone is going along the 1 inch horizontal line, because what that does is it shows you where you're going to put the acrylic ornament on your mat. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing when you go to engrave it. So basically that's what that's for. This isn't really a specific dimension. I mean, I'm sure you could figure it out, but it's much easier to just go to the 1 and the 1 and then line it up that way. That way you know where you're putting the bone. Now we don't actually need the bone to be sent to the computer because we don't want to draw the bone. We already have the bone. So I'm going to go over here and here's my bone, and I'm going to click on the eye and turn it off so you don't see it anymore. So that's all we're going to send over to the computer. So now to send it to the computer, we're going to go File, Export/Transfer FCM file. Now it's going to say, warning, the objects that have been set as hidden are not available to export or transfer. So they're talking about the bone that I just hid, I guess. And that's okay because we don't want it to get the bone. We're leaving the bone out of the design. And then I'm going to transfer the FCM file via wireless, which is this one. You could also export it with like a USB cable, or you could save it to a thumb drive and transfer it that way. So I'm going to just do this. It says the registered machine is ready to download the transferred file from the internet. Hit OK, and then I will go to the machine. So I'll meet you over there. All right, so I'm here at the machine, and I'll hit Retrieve Data, hit the wireless icon there, it brings up the file. It will only bring up the last file you sent, and there it is, all good to go. So now I'm going to put the blade in. Well, the sort of blade. So I'm going to remove the auto blade by pushing up the gray lever that holds it down and just pulling it straight out. No big deal. And then this is the engraving tool. It is not a brother tool. It is from Chomas Creations. I could be mispronouncing that. It just fits straight into the blade, the pen, or the auto blade holder, and you're good to go. Just press the lever down. Now this is the ornament I'm using, and I'm going to stick it on the mat. But first, there's something I need to do. So with the scan and cut, to hold these acrylic pieces down on the mat where it's strong enough that the engraving tool can actually engrave it without pushing it, you need to use some really strong adhesive tape. Painter's tape will not work. Believe me, I know. Painter's tape, for whatever reason, does not hold it down well enough. So I had to use this like heavy duty adhesive tape. This is some Suk Wang tape. You could also use like red line tape. Elizabeth Craft Science has some tape like that. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, like the clear, really sticky tape. Now I'm lining it up 1 inch over on the left and 1 inch down from the top along those lines on the mat, just like we did in Brother Canvas, to make sure that it's going to engrave in the correct spot. And now I'm going to load the mat. So you do have to make sure that your ornament is going to fit under the roller bar, because it's going to roll under it. Now the Scan and Cut DX has a lever on the side so you would put it in the 2 position, like the up position, to raise that bar a little bit. This ornament is 3 millimeters thick. So I'm going to hit OK on the screen, and then it's going to say, sorry, I got to keep moving my machine to get it in here so you can see it. Please select, and I'm going to select Draw, because we're tricking the machine into thinking we're drawing this design, not engraving it. Hit Start, and it's going to come up and say Attach Appropriate Holder. Just say OK, ignore that, and then hit Start. And it's going to start engraving, because it thinks that you're attaching a pen with the pen holder, and so that's why it's reminding you of that, but you're not. And you don't need any special adapter or anything for this engraving tool. They've made it to fit in the auto blade slot. Now here's some cell phone video where you can see how it's engraved the wing, and I just wanted to show you how this thing it shakes a little bit in the holder, and especially when it's doing those fill lines, like going in horizontal close lines, it kind of shakes back and forth. That's totally normal. It did take 3 minutes, and I obviously skipped a lot of that, and there it is. Now my mat's really dirty, so I apologize for that. I'm going to hit Finish Cutting, and then unload the mat by hitting the mat button. And then I'll just move the machine out of the way, and we will peel the ornament off the mat. Now you have to be a little bit careful. Don't break your ornament, because this tape is kind of sticky, is kind of holding on there, but it's easy to get off. And there we have our first look at the engraved design. Now there's a lot of debris on the back of it, a lot. So you're gonna have to wipe it off with your finger, or kind of scrape it off with your fingernail like I'm doing here. You could use that piece of tape to like stick it off, like kind of pick up the bits. Just get it nice and clean, and then maybe rub it with like a microfiber cloth or something to clean it up at the end. And you will need to clean the engraving tool tip before you use it again. And there is the completed ornament. And I thought it came out really great. And then there's the Otis one. And then I wanted to show you this guy, because that is a filled in ornament, and you can kind of see the lines. You'll get a closer look at that at the end. And this was my very first test, so I did not flip it backwards, but it did pretty well on even those like really little intricate snowflakes. So there you can see the ornaments. Now this will void your warranty, because it is not a brother tool, so don't use it until after your warranty period is up. But it is really cool, and it really opens up some options. And there you see the like little lines for the fill in that snowflake to give you an idea of what it looks like. But I think you could make some great stocking stuffers, great ornaments for your trees, great things for your scrapbook with this, so I hope I've inspired you to check it out. And thank you so much for watching. I know this is a bit long. As always, supplies are linked in the video description and over on my blog. The SVG file is free until November 14th or through November 14th, 2020. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would do that. And please leave me a comment, because I love hearing from you. Thanks. Have a great day.